Have you ever opened your investment account, looked at the number staring back at you, and wondered, am I actually getting anywhere? Maybe you've been saving diligently for years, slowly watching that balance climb to $20,000 or $30,000. Or maybe you've just started with a few $1,000s tucked away, hoping one day it'll turn into something life-changing. But no matter where you stand right now, that $1,000,000 goal, that elusive seven-figure milestone, still feels galaxies away. Here's the twist most people never see coming. Once you hit your first 100,000, you're already a third of the way to becoming a millionaire. I know, that sounds impossible. 100,000 doesn't feel like a third of a million, and yet, mathematically and psychologically, it is. I'm Mike Compound, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, compound interest, and why most people spend their entire lives chasing wealth but never catch it. If you're someone who wants to understand how wealth actually grows, not just dream about it, then stick around. Because once you understand this one truth about how money multiplies, it'll completely change how you see your financial future. Now let's start by confronting the single biggest myth about wealth building. Most people believe the road to wealth is linear. They think, if I save $10,000, I'm exactly $10,000 closer to a million. If I save $50,000, I'm halfway to $100,000. It's tidy, logical, and completely wrong. This idea is the silent killer of financial motivation. It's what makes people stare at their accounts after years of saving and say, at this rate, I'll never get there. And honestly, if money worked the way most people think it does, they'd be right. If all your savings ever did was sit there, then yes, the journey to a million would be hopelessly long and brutally slow. But money, when invested wisely, doesn't sit still. It works. It grows, multiplies, and eventually snowballs into something far greater than you ever imagined. This is where the concept of compound interest steps in, the quiet engine behind every fortune ever built. Albert Einstein once called it the eighth wonder of the world. Whether or not he actually said it, the truth behind that quote is undeniable. Those who understand compound interest earn it. Those who don't, pay it. But before we get into the math, let's paint a picture, one that might look a lot like your own life. Imagine working hard every week, setting aside $100 to invest. That's about $400 a month. It's not pocket change, but it's not an impossible amount either. It's the cost of a few dinners out, a handful of streaming subscriptions, or a couple of impulsive online purchases. Nothing dramatic, just a small, consistent commitment to your future. Now here's where the real surprise begins. With an average annual return of 8%, which is actually conservative by historical standards, you'd reach your first 100,000 in roughly 12 years. And I can almost hear the sighs. 12 years? That sounds like forever. But think about it. 12 years ago, who were you? The time would have passed anyway. The only difference is whether you'd have something to show for it. During those first dozen years, most of the growth in your account comes from you. You're doing the heavy lifting while compound interest is just warming up. Out of that first $100,000, around $62,000 comes directly from your own pocket, while about $38,000 is the return your money earned for you. It's not life-changing yet, but it's real progress, a solid foundation. And this is the exact point where most people give up. They see the slow results and think it's not working. They compare their 12-year grind to someone else's apparent overnight success. They forget that every fortune has an invisible beginning, years of planting seeds before the harvest. That first $100,000 is the proving ground. It's not just about the money. It's about the mindset you build while earning it. The patience, the discipline, the faith that something small can grow into something massive over time. You're not just saving dollars, you're building a system, a machine that will soon start running on its own momentum. Because what happens next will surprise you. The same math that took 12 years to earn you your first 100 ones will make your second $100 appear in half that time. This is where compound interest reveals its magic, and it's where your journey to wealth truly begins. Let's put this into perspective. You spent 12 long years climbing the mountain to your first $100,000. Every dollar felt like a struggle, a battle between your current comfort and your future security. But here's the beautiful part. Once you've reached that point, everything begins to shift. The gears of compound interest finally start turning in your favor. From this moment forward, your money isn't just a pile of savings. It's a living, breathing machine that works for you. The same way an employee earns a paycheck, your money now earns its own paycheck, and then that paycheck earns another. It's not magic, it's math. Let's run the numbers again. You keep doing what you've been doing, investing $100 a week, roughly $400 a month. Same effort, same contribution. But now, instead of 12 years, it takes only about 6 more years to double your total and reach $200,000. That's right. It took you 12 years to earn your first 100K. But only half that time to earn the next one. Why? Because you've reached the point where your money is now the one doing the heavy lifting. Of that $200,000, only about $94,000 came directly from your pocket. The rest, a staggering $106,000, came from your investments growing on their own. At this stage, compound interest starts flexing its muscles. It's like pushing a massive snowball up a hill. The first stretch feels endless, but once you reach the top, gravity takes over, and that snowball gains momentum you can barely control. That's the wealth curve. Slow, flat, and frustrating at first, then suddenly steep, fast, and exhilarating. Here's the kicker. When you hit $200,000, you're actually halfway to becoming a millionaire. Not 1/5, not 1/4, but halfway. That's the counterintuitive beauty of exponential growth. The math bends reality in your favor. And it's not just about the math, it's about psychology. Something profound changes when you see that 6-figure balance start to grow faster than you could ever add to it manually. It's the first moment where you feel wealth building itself. The small, invisible miracle you once doubted becomes tangible. Let's fast forward a little. You keep investing that same $100 each week, staying consistent no matter what the market does. Yes, there will be ups and downs. Some years will test your patience, others will reward you beyond expectation. But as long as you keep feeding the machine, something extraordinary happens. The snowball grows so large, it becomes unstoppable. By the time you hit the 36-year mark, your portfolio crosses a $1,000. You've contributed around $187,000 in total, yet your account shows over $1 million. That means more than 8% of your net worth came from growth. Not your labor, not your savings, but from the quiet compounding power of time. That's the hidden truth most people never experience because they quit too early. They give up right before the curve bends upward. They look at their balance, see a slow crawl, and assume the system doesn't work. But those who endure, who stay invested through the flat years, get to witness one of the most satisfying transformations in personal finance. Think about it. Once you hit $1 million, your money can now generate roughly 80 Aus per year in growth alone, without you lifting a finger. That's more than many people earn in a full-time job. Your first $100,000 took you a decade to build. Now, your portfolio produces nearly that much every year on its own. That's when wealth stops being a dream and becomes a system. You don't chase it anymore. It chases you. And the best part? You didn't need to live like a monk to make it happen. You didn't need to take massive risks or time the market perfectly. You simply made a consistent, conscious decision, $100 per week, no matter what. Most people underestimate how powerful small choices can be when given enough time to grow. The journey to wealth isn't about big leaps. It's about steady steps. The only real difference between those who build wealth and those who don't isn't intelligence or luck. It's patience. The next time you hear someone say, investing doesn't work, remember this: they probably stopped pushing the snowball before it ever started rolling. There's a saying in the investing world that the first 100,000 is the hardest. And once you hit it, everything changes. At first, that sounds cliche, almost like financial folklore passed down by people who already made it. But if you look closer, you'll realize there's something deeply psychological and profoundly real behind that statement. When you finally see 6 figures sitting in your account, something in your mind shifts. Suddenly, wealth no longer feels like a fantasy. It becomes real. Before $100,000, the returns are small, almost invisible. A few hundred here, maybe 1,000 there. But once your balance crosses that threshold, the game transforms. Your money begins producing more money, faster than you can save it manually. In a typical year, an 8% return on $100,000 means you're earning $8,000 in growth without adding a single extra dollar. That's almost $700 a month. equivalent to an entire week's paycheck for many people. Now, instead of waiting for payday, payday comes to you. And as your returns become noticeable, so does your motivation. You no longer see investing as a sacrifice. It becomes something exciting, even addictive. You start thinking differently about spending. Every purchase suddenly carries a new kind of weight. That $100 dinner, you don't just see it as a fun night out anymore, you see it as 700 in potential future value. The wealthy don't see money as something to be spent. They see it as a seed. Each dollar has the power to grow, multiply, and work for them if they plant it in the right place. This shift in mindset is where most people fail to arrive because they give up too early. They never experience that first turning point where growth outpaces contribution. They see years of saving and think, this isn't working fast enough, not realizing that the system they're building is still in warm-up mode. But once you've reached that six-figure mark, you've proven you can do the hard part, not just financially, but emotionally. You've demonstrated patience, consistency, and restraint in a world built on instant gratification. You've chosen long-term satisfaction over short-term comfort, and that's the exact skill set required to turn 100,000 into one basin pot. Because here's what happens next. The more your money grows, the more opportunities appear that were once invisible to you. Suddenly, you can invest in things you couldn't before. Real estate, index funds, maybe even small business ventures. You can afford to take calculated risks that someone living paycheck to paycheck could never consider. Wealth gives you flexibility, it gives you leverage, it gives you options. That's why $100,000 is not just a number, it's a psychological gate. Once you walk through it, the way you see money, time, and effort completely transforms. You start to think like a builder, not a consumer. And the momentum that follows is nothing short of powerful. The same $100 weekly contribution that once felt like climbing a mountain now feels like adding a few twigs to an already roaring fire. You don't need to work harder anymore. The system is doing it for you. In fact, the only real danger at this point isn't failure, it's distraction. When you reach this stage, it's easy to get overconfident, to chase shiny objects, to start believing you can outsmart the system that got you here. That's when people start dabbling in high-risk investments, crypto schemes, or market timing, forgetting that their greatest ally has always been time, not luck. But those who stay steady, who stay faithful to their boring, consistent plan, those are the ones who quietly pass the million mark without even realizing it. Their wealth doesn't explode in a single moment. It unfolds like a sunrise, slow and unstoppable. And as this financial sunrise rises higher, your life begins to shift in other ways too. You become calmer with money, less anxious, more deliberate. You stop worrying about how to make ends meet and start thinking about how to make your money serve your purpose. That's the moment you realize wealth isn't about the numbers, it's about freedom. The first $100,000 gives you more than financial traction. It gives you the confidence to know that your future isn't built on luck, it's built on discipline. From this point on, the challenge isn't building wealth, it's protecting your focus. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Building wealth isn't a game of numbers, it's a game of emotions. You could hand two people the exact same income, the same investment plan, and the same opportunity, and 10 years later, one will be thriving while the other is still broke. Why? Because wealth isn't just built in your bank account, it's built in your mind. By the time you've reached your first $100,000, you've already proven you can handle delayed gratification, one of the rarest skills in the modern world. We live in a culture that worships speed, one-click delivery, instant streaming, same-day credit approval. We're addicted to now, but money doesn't work like that. It rewards the patient, not the impulsive. This is why the majority of people will never see true financial freedom. It's not because they're lazy or unintelligent. It's because they've never learned to wait. They want the lifestyle of a millionaire before they've built the mindset of one. They'll spend thousands on a car that loses value every day, but hesitate to invest 100 into something that could grow forever. If you've built that $100,000, you've already broken that pattern. You've learned to say no, not because you can't afford it, but because you've learned the power of later. Every time you resisted the urge to buy something temporary, you built something permanent. Let's talk about how most people fall into the trap of lifestyle inflation. It happens the moment they start earning more. Instead of using that extra income to invest, they use it to upgrade. A bigger car, a nicer apartment, new gadgets, better vacations. Suddenly, the more they make, the less they keep. They're not earning money, they're renting a lifestyle. But the person who understands compound growth plays a different game. They know that each raise, each bonus, each windfall is an opportunity to accelerate the snowball. Maybe you were investing $100 a week when you started. A few years later, you're earning more, so why not make it $200 or $300? You're no longer trying to survive, you're building leverage. Every extra dollar invested today has decades to multiply. And what about the inevitable rough patches? Recessions, market crashes, job loss, fear. That's where most people lose their composure. They panic, they sell, they quit. But here's the strange truth. Downturns are where real wealth is created. Because when prices drop, your consistent $100 buys more. When the market recovers, as it always has, those extra shares explode in value. Think of it like buying groceries. If your favorite food goes on sale, you don't stop buying it. You stock up. Investing works the same way. Wealthy investors don't fear downturns. They quietly thank them. Of course, this doesn't mean you ignore risk or pretend markets can't crash. It means you understand the bigger picture. Time, not timing, is what makes people rich. Missing even a few of the market's best days can cost you hundreds of thousands in long-term growth. The wealthy stay calm because they understand that patience is profit. But beyond the math, there's something deeper, the identity shift. Once you start to see yourself as an investor, everything changes. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Is this worth it?" You stop chasing money and start attracting it through consistency, clarity, and confidence. At this stage, wealth isn't about deprivation, it's about direction. You're no longer saving just to have money. You're saving to have options to work less, to move where you want, to take a risk on a business, to say no to the things that don't align with your purpose. That's what the $100,000 milestone really represents. It's not just capital, it's control. The ability to choose your path without financial fear dictating your every move. The people who never get there, they're not unlucky. They're distracted. They chase every shiny opportunity instead of mastering one simple plan. They spend decades looking for shortcuts when the truth has been in front of them all along. Consistency compounds. So if you've reached this point, if you've learned to delay, to stay steady, to keep showing up, then you've already mastered the hardest part of the millionaire's mindset. The rest is simply time. Once you've built that foundation, the discipline, the patience, the quiet confidence, the rest of the journey almost feels effortless because now compound interest isn't a theory on a spreadsheet, it's your reality. Your money grows faster than your doubts, and every year that passes, the acceleration becomes more dramatic. By year 36, that same $100 per week, something that once felt small and insignificant, has blossomed into over $1,000. You've contributed roughly $187,000 over 3.5 decades. But more than 800,000 of your wealth was created by your money working for you. Let that sink in for a second. The majority of your fortune came not from your job, not from luck, not from a single big break, but from consistency, from staying the course when others quit. At that stage, something even more powerful happens. Your investments begin to generate more income than your labor. You could stop contributing entirely, and your portfolio would still grow faster than you ever could have saved manually. Your money now earns $80,000 per year, passive, quiet, and relentless. For the first time, you're no longer trading your time for money. Time has become your ally. And that's when true freedom begins. Not the fantasy of yachts or private jets, but the quiet, steady peace that comes from knowing your future is secure. You can take risks, start something new, spend time with people you love without worrying about next month's bills. That's the real reward of financial independence. Choice. But let's not romanticize it too much. This didn't happen because of luck or timing. It happened because you respected the process. Because when everyone else was chasing trends, you were building roots. When they were gambling, you were compounding. You didn't need to make perfect decisions. You just needed to stay in the game. And that's the secret very few people ever discover. Wealth doesn't come from brilliance. It comes from duration. The person who stays invested for 36 years beats the one who starts strong and quits after 5. Now let's fast forward even further. By year 45, that million becomes 2 million. Not because you doubled your effort, but because your money's growth doubled itself. Every year, your returns alone could replace a full-time salary. It's almost surreal to think that something as small as $100 a week could lead here. But that's the math of time and discipline, two forces more powerful than talent or luck combined. Still, the most fascinating part of all this isn't even financial. It's emotional. As your wealth grows, your relationship with money transforms. You stop worrying about having enough and start thinking about doing enough with it. You think about impact, about freedom, about legacy. Because once you're free from financial fear, you finally have space to ask the bigger questions. What do I want to build? Who do I want to become? That's when money stops being your master and becomes your servant. And it all began with one small decision: to start. Maybe that's the most underrated lesson in personal finance. You don't need to be perfect, rich, or lucky. You just need to be consistent. That's the bridge between ordinary and extraordinary, between wishing for wealth and quietly building it. And if you're still early on that path, maybe with just a few thousand in your account, wondering if any of this even matters, remember this: the first step is always the slowest. Every dollar you invest today is a vote for the future version of you, the one who gets to breathe a little easier, take a little more control, and live on your own terms. Time will pass anyway. The question is, will it be filled with excuses or with results? Because 36 years from now, you'll either be thanking yourself or wishing you had started sooner. So don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect amount, or the perfect market. Start with what you have. Stay consistent. Let time do its work. I'm Mike Compound, and this is what building real wealth looks like. Simple choices made consistently over time. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe for more insights that turn complicated money lessons into simple, life-changing clarity. Because in the end, it's not about getting rich fast. It's about getting free. 1 week, one decision, $100 investment at a time.